Never thought my life would change between these quaint little stalls, but that's where I met Carter, the man who would turn my world upside down. It was a sunny Saturday afternoon at the local artisan craft fair, and I was displaying my handmade jewelry line. That's when he approached my booth, his eyes twinkling with sincere interest. "These pieces are exquisite," Carter marveled, running his fingers over the delicate beadwork. "You have a remarkable talent." I couldn't help but blush at his compliments. "Thank you. I put a lot of heart into each creation." As we chatted, I learned that Carter was the owner of a prestigious art gallery in the city. He expressed a keen desire to showcase my work, insisting that my designs deserved a wider audience. Before I knew it, Carter had charmed his way into my life. We started dating, and within months, he proposed that I move in with him and his daughter Meredith. Eager for a fresh start, I agreed, bringing along my son Blake. Little did I know, this decision would set off a chain of events that would test my resolve and shake the very foundations of my newfound happiness. On our first night in Carter's luxurious home, Meredith made her disdain crystal clear. "Try not to change too much around here," she sneered, eyeing me with undisguised hostility. I brushed off her icy reception, hoping that in time she'd warm up to me and accept our blended family. But as the weeks passed, Meredith's antagonism only grew, making me increasingly uncomfortable in my own home. Meanwhile, Blake couldn't hide his concerns about Carter. "Mom, there's something off about him," he warned after overhearing a tense phone call. "Be careful." At first, I dismissed Blake's worries, blinded by my desire for stability and the affection Carter showered upon me. But as I began helping Carter with bookkeeping for his gallery, discrepancies in the accounts raised red flags. Tensions reached a boiling point during a family dinner when Blake confronted Meredith about her lavish spending habits. "Mind your own business," she snapped. "My finances are not your playground." Cora witnessed the quarrel, realizing the depth of the rift in the family she had hoped to unite. But little did she know, a far more sinister truth was about to surface. One that would shatter her illusions and force her to make a choice that would change the course of all their lives forever. Despite Meredith's cold reception, I remained determined to make our blended family work. Carter had brought so much joy and stability into my life after years of hardship, and I refused to let his daughter's hostility deter me. However, as the weeks dragged on, the tension within our home became increasingly palpable. One evening, while helping Carter with the gallery's finances, I stumbled upon a hidden file on his computer, a meticulously crafted record of fraudulent transactions and embezzled funds. My heart pounded as the realization hit me. The man I trusted had been engaging in illegal activities right under my nose. "Carter, what is this?" I demanded, confronting him later that night. "Is this why Meredith is so protective of everything here?" His eyes widened, panic etched across his features. "Cora, please, let me explain." "Explain what exactly?" I shot back, struggling to keep my voice steady. "That you've been lying to me all this time, engaging in fraud and God knows what else?" Carter dropped to his knees, grasping my hands with desperation. "I did it for us, to secure our future, our family's future. Please understand." I recoiled from his touch, disgusted by his betrayal. "How can I understand something so despicable? You've built this life on a foundation of lies and deceit. Mom, Dad, what's going on?" Blake's voice echoed from the hallway, his face etched with concern. Composing myself, I turned to my son, the only person I could truly trust in that moment. "Blake, pack your things, we're leaving." "But, Mom—" "Now," I insisted, my tone leaving no room for argument. As Blake reluctantly retreated to his room, Carter continued his pleading. "Cora, think about what you're doing. This could ruin everything we've built together." I leveled my gaze at him, a newfound resolve burning within me. "You brought this upon yourself, Carter. I won't be an accomplice to your crimes, not when my son's future is at stake." With a heavy heart, I gathered what little belongings I had and left Carter's house that night, Blake by my side. As we stepped out into the cool evening air, I couldn't help but feel a sense of relief. Relief at having escaped the web of lies that had nearly ensnared me. In the days that followed, I made the difficult decision to report Carter's illegal activities to the authorities. It wasn't an easy choice, but I knew it was the right thing to do, not just for my own peace of mind, but for the sake of justice. Meredith, however, saw my actions as a betrayal of the highest order. "You've destroyed everything we had," she screamed, her face contorted with rage. "My father trusted you, and you stabbed him in the back." I met her fury with a steely resolve. "Your father brought this upon himself, Meredith. I won't stand by and enable his criminal behavior, no matter how much wealth and comfort it may have provided." As the legal proceedings unfolded, Carter's web of deceit began to unravel, casting a harsh light on the lavish lifestyle he had built on the backs of others. Meredith, consumed by her loyalty to her father, lashed out at me at every turn, her words laced with venom. But through it all, I remained steadfast, my focus solely on protecting Blake and ensuring that justice prevailed. Carter's arrest and eventual conviction brought a sense of closure, but it also served as a harsh reminder of the consequences of greed and deception. In the aftermath of Carter's arrest, Blake and I found ourselves starting over, but with a newfound sense of purpose. The weight of his betrayal had been lifted, and we were determined to build a life rooted in integrity and authenticity. "It's time we create something that's truly ours," Blake declared one evening, his eyes alight with determination. "No more shadows lurking behind, no more lies." I couldn't have agreed more. With the settlement from Carter's seized assets and my renewed drive, we decided to expand my jewelry business, pouring our hearts into crafting exquisite pieces that would speak to the beauty of honesty and resilience. As we immersed ourselves in the work, a sense of healing washed over us. Each intricate design, each carefully placed bead became a testament to our triumph over adversity, a tangible reminder that we had emerged from the darkness stronger than ever before. However, our newfound peace was short-lived, as Meredith's bitterness continued to fester. She would often show up unannounced, her eyes burning with resentment. "You think you've won, don't you?" she spat one day, barging into our studio. "Well, let me tell you, you've only scratched the surface of the misery you've caused." Blake stepped between us, his protective instincts kicking in. "Enough, Meredith. We've moved on, and it's time you did the same." "Moved on?" she scoffed. "You've destroyed my family, and for what? A chance to play the moral high ground?" I placed a calming hand on Blake's shoulder, unwilling to let Meredith's vitriol disrupt our hard-won serenity. "We did what was right, Meredith. Your father's choices led him down this path, not us." Meredith's lips curled into a cruel sneer. "Keep telling yourself that, if it helps you sleep at night. But mark my words, you haven't seen the last of me." With those chilling words, she stormed out, leaving a lingering sense of unease in her wake. In the weeks that followed, we threw ourselves into our work with renewed vigor, determined not to let Meredith's threats undermine our progress. Our designs began to garner attention, with orders pouring in from art enthusiasts and collectors alike. Yet, even as our success grew, a nagging fear persisted, the fear that Meredith's ominous promise would come to fruition. Blake and I would often find ourselves jumping at every unexpected sound, wondering if she was lurking in the shadows, plotting her revenge. Then, one fateful day, our worst fears were realized. As I was closing up the studio for the night, a figure emerged from the darkness, their face obscured by a hooded sweatshirt. "Who's there?" I called out, my heart pounding in my chest. The figure stepped forward, and to my horror, I recognized Meredith's piercing gaze. In her hand, she clutched a metal pipe, her knuckles white with rage. "This ends tonight," she snarled, her voice dripping with malice. "You've taken everything from me, and now you're going to pay." In that moment, time seemed to slow to a crawl. As Meredith raised the pipe, poised to strike, I braced myself for the inevitable impact, my mind racing with thoughts of Blake and our hard-won future. But just as the pipe was about to come crashing down, a familiar voice rang out, echoing through the studio. "Meredith, stop!" Blake had arrived, his eyes wide with fear and determination. Blake's voice cut through the tension like a knife, his eyes blazing with a protective fury I had never seen before. Meredith faltered, the metal pipe wavering in her grasp as she turned to face my son. "Stay out of this, Blake," she hissed, her words dripping with venom. "This is between me and your mother." Blake stepped forward, his shoulders squared, his jaw set with determination. "Like hell it is. You're not going to lay a finger on her, not while I'm still breathing." Meredith let out a harsh, mirthless laugh. Always playing the hero, aren't you? Well, you can't save her from the consequences of her actions. Her actions? Blake shot back, his voice rising with indignation. You mean doing the right thing, the thing your father should have done from the start? Meredith's grip tightened around the pipe, her knuckles turning white with rage. Don't you dare speak about my father like that. He gave you everything, and this is how you repay him? He gave us a lie, I interjected, my voice trembling but resolute, a life built on deceit and stolen dreams. Meredith turned her fury towards me, her eyes narrowed and filled with hatred. Shut your mouth, you self-righteous hypocrite. You think you're so much better than us, don't you? I held my ground, drawing strength from Blake's unwavering presence by my side. I never claimed to be better, Meredith. I simply chose to walk the path of integrity, something your father lost sight of long ago. With a feral snarl, Meredith raised the pipe, her muscles coiling like a snake poised to strike. Blake moved to shield me, his body tensed and ready for the impending attack. But just as the confrontation seemed to reach its boiling point, the sound of sirens pierced the air, growing louder with each passing second. Meredith froze, her eyes wide with panic, as the wail of police cars echoed through the streets outside. This isn't over, she spat, her voice trembling with a mixture of rage and fear. You haven't seen the last of me. With those parting words, she turned and fled, disappearing into the shadows just as the first squad car pulled up, its lights bathing the studio in a kaleidoscope of flashing red and blue. In the aftermath of that harrowing encounter, Blake and I found ourselves recounting the events to the officers, their faces etched with concern and disbelief. It seemed that Meredith's obsessive quest for revenge had finally caught the attention of the authorities, thanks to an anonymous tip from a concerned neighbor. As we sat in the dimly lit interrogation room, the weight of the night's events settled upon us like a heavy shroud. Blake reached over and squeezed my hand, his touch grounding me in the midst of the chaos. It's over, Mom, he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. She can't hurt us anymore. But even as I nodded in agreement, a nagging sense of doubt lingered in the back of my mind. Meredith's parting words echoed like a haunting refrain. You haven't seen the last of me. In that moment, I knew that our ordeal was far from over. Meredith's thirst for vengeance ran deeper than any of us could have imagined, and the battle lines had been drawn. As we left the police station that night, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was merely the calm before the storm, a brief respite before the true reckoning would begin. In the wake of Meredith's chilling promise, Blake and I found ourselves living in a state of constant vigilance. Every shadow seemed to harbor a potential threat. Every unexpected sound a harbinger of her impending vengeance. The once comforting walls of our studio now felt like a cage, trapping us in a cycle of fear and uncertainty. Despite the authorities' assurances that they would do everything in their power to keep us safe, I couldn't shake the nagging sense that Meredith's obsession ran deeper than any of us could comprehend. Her hatred had taken on a life of its own, fueled by a twisted sense of justice that left no room for reason or mercy. It was during one of those restless nights as I tossed and turned, plagued by nightmares of Meredith's piercing gaze and the glint of that metal pipe, that a glimmer of hope emerged. Blake burst into my room, his face flushed with excitement. Mom, I think I found something, he panted, clutching a stack of papers in his trembling hands. Sitting upright, I squinted at the documents in the dim light. What is it? Blake took a deep breath, his eyes alight with determination. Evidence. Evidence that could finally put an end to Meredith's vendetta. As he laid out the papers before me, a chilling realization dawned. The documents detailed an intricate web of financial transactions, tracing the flow of embezzled funds directly into Meredith's personal accounts. She was in on it, Blake whispered, his voice heavy with disbelief. All this time, she was profiting from her father's crimes. A wave of nausea washed over me as the pieces fell into place. Meredith's unwavering loyalty to her father, her obsessive need to protect their lavish lifestyle, it all stemmed from a deep-rooted complicity in his illegal activities. We have to take this to the authorities, I murmured, my mind racing with the implications of this newfound evidence. Blake nodded solemnly. And we have to be careful. If Meredith catches wind of this, There's no telling what she might do. We spent the rest of the night poring over the documents, committing every detail to memory. As the first rays of dawn peeked through the curtains, we knew that the time for action had arrived. With trembling hands, I dialed the number for the detective leading the investigation into Carter's case. His gruff voice crackled over the line, tinged with skepticism. "What is it now? More empty threats from that deranged daughter of his?" "No," I replied, steeling my resolve. "This time we have proof. Proof that Meredith was a willing participant in her father's schemes." There was a pause, a heavy silence that seemed to stretch on for an eternity. Finally, the detective spoke, his voice laced with a newfound sense of urgency. "Bring it in. We'll need to act fast before she has a chance to cover her tracks." Hanging up the phone, I turned to Blake, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. "This is it," I whispered. "The moment we've been waiting for." Blake nodded, his jaw set with determination. "We're going to end this, once and for all." As we gathered the evidence and made our way to the police station, a sense of calm settled over me. For too long we had lived in the shadow of Meredith's wrath, cowering in fear of her twisted quest for retribution. But now, armed with the truth, we had the power to break free from her hold, to finally find the closure and justice we so desperately craved. Little did we know, however, that our actions would set in motion a chain of events that would test the very limits of our resilience, plunging us into a whirlwind of chaos and confrontation, a reckoning that would shake the foundations of everything we thought we knew. The weight of the evidence in our hands felt like a lead weight, a burden we had been carrying for far too long. As we sat across from the detective, laying out the damning documents that revealed Meredith's complicity in her father's crimes, a palpable sense of resolution hung in the air. The detective's brow furrowed as he pored over the papers, his eyes narrowing with each new revelation. "This is big," he murmured, his voice tinged with a mixture of disbelief and grim satisfaction. "With this, we can finally put an end to her reign of terror." Blake's grip tightened on my hand, his knuckles turning white with a mixture of anticipation and residual fear. We had come too far, sacrificed too much to let this opportunity slip through our fingers. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The detective leaned back in his chair, his expression grim. "Now, we move swiftly and decisively. We'll have a team ready to bring her in for questioning, and with this evidence, we should have enough to make charges stick." A fleeting sense of relief washed over me, only to be quickly replaced by a nagging doubt. Meredith was cunning, her thirst for vengeance fueled by a twisted sense of entitlement. Would she go down without a fight? As if reading my mind, the detective met my gaze, his eyes steely with resolve. "Don't worry, we'll be prepared for any surprises she might have in store. This time, we'll be the ones calling the shots." With those reassuring words, the wheels were set in motion. A team of officers, armed with the damning evidence and a burning sense of justice, descended upon Meredith's lavish penthouse apartment. The sound of pounding footsteps and shouted commands echoed through the corridors, shattering the eerie silence that had blanketed the building. Blake and I could only watch from afar, our hearts pounding in our chests as the dramatic scene unfolded. Moments later, a disheveled and defiant Meredith emerged, her wrists bound by steel cuffs, her eyes burning with a fury that threatened to consume us all. As she was led past us, her gaze locked onto mine, and in that moment, I saw the depths of her depravity laid bare. "You think you've won?" she spat, her voice dripping with venom. "This is just the beginning. You'll never be free of me, not until you've paid for what you've done." Blake stepped forward, his body tensed with protective instinct. "It's over, Meredith. Your games, your lies, all of it. You're going to face justice for what you've put us through." Meredith let out a harsh, mirthless laugh, her lips curling into a twisted sneer. "Justice? Don't make me laugh. You've only scratched the surface of what I'm capable of." As she was led away, her parting words hung in the air like a suffocating miasma, a chilling reminder that our ordeal was far from over. In the days that followed, the weight of Meredith's arrest seemed to lift a shroud of darkness from our lives. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Blake and I could breathe freely, our steps no longer weighed down by the specter of her vengeance. Yet even as we reveled in this newfound sense of freedom, A lingering unease persisted. Meredith's threats, her unwavering conviction that she would have the last laugh, haunted us like a waking nightmare. It was during one of our visits to the detective's office that the true extent of her depravity came to light. As we sat across from the weary-eyed investigator, he slid a manila folder towards us, its contents a chilling testament to the depths of Meredith's obsession. "We found this in her apartment," he said, his voice laced with a mixture of disgust and grim resignation. "It appears she was planning something big." The contents of that ominous manila folder felt like a lead weight, dragging us deeper into the abyss of Meredith's twisted machinations. As Blake and I pored over the disturbing documents, a sickening realization took hold. Her obsession had spiraled far beyond our worst fears. Detailed schematics, meticulously annotated with notes in Meredith's cramped handwriting, laid out a plan so sinister, so calculated, that it chilled us to the core. She had been plotting a devastating attack, one that would not only destroy our fledgling business but also inflict untold harm on those we held dear. "She's completely unhinged," Blake murmured, his voice laced with a mixture of disbelief and dawning horror. We had no idea how far she was willing to go. The detective's grim expression spoke volumes, his eyes haunted by the weight of the evidence before us. "I'm afraid this is just the tip of the iceberg. We've uncovered a web of conspiracies and underground connections that run deeper than we ever imagined." With each passing moment, the true scope of Meredith's depravity became clearer, casting a dark shadow over our fragile sense of security. She had cultivated a network of enablers and co-conspirators, all hell-bent on exacting a twisted brand of vengeance on our behalf. As the weight of the situation settled upon us, a steely resolve took root within my heart. We had come too far, sacrificed too much to let Meredith's madness consume us. It was time to take a stand, to confront this darkness head-on, no matter the cost. "What do we do now?" I asked, my voice steady despite the churning turmoil within. The detective's expression hardened, a glint of determination shining in his eyes. "We strike first. We take down her network, dismantle her plans piece by piece, until she has nowhere left to hide." And so began a whirlwind of covert operations, a dance with shadows and whispered intel. Blake and I found ourselves thrust into a world we never could have imagined, a realm where loyalties were constantly tested and danger lurked around every corner. As we worked hand in hand with the authorities, unraveling the intricate web of Meredith's conspiracies, a newfound sense of purpose took root within us. This was no longer just about protecting ourselves. It was about safeguarding the innocent lives that hung in the balance, about ensuring that Meredith's reign of terror would come to a definitive end. With each victory, each dismantled cell or thwarted plot, a glimmer of hope shone through the darkness. But Meredith, ever the master manipulator, remained defiant, her fury burning brighter with each setback. "You think you've won?" she spat during one of our tense confrontations, her eyes wild with unbridled rage. "This is just the beginning. I will burn everything you hold dear to the ground, and you'll have no one to blame but yourselves." Her words, laced with venom, cut deep. But we refused to be cowed, fueled by a determination that had been forged in the fires of our shared ordeal. We had come too far, endured too much, to let her twisted games break us. As the final pieces of her nefarious network crumbled, the authorities closed in, tightening the noose around Meredith's neck with each passing day. And through it all, Blake and I stood firm, unwavering in our resolve to see this through to the bitter end. The day of Meredith's final reckoning dawned bright and clear, a stark contrast to the darkness that had consumed our lives for so long. As she was led into the courtroom, her shoulders slumped in defeat. A hush fell over the crowd. A collective exhalation of relief and disbelief that this nightmare was finally drawing to a close. The courtroom fell deathly silent as the judge's gavel echoed through the chamber, punctuating Meredith's fate with a finality that sent a ripple of relief through my core. As she was led away, her head bowed in defeat, a weight lifted from my shoulders, a burden I had carried for far too long. In the aftermath of Meredith's sentencing, Blake and I found ourselves adrift, untethered from the all-consuming quest for justice that had defined our lives for so long. The familiar walls of our studio, once a sanctuary, now felt foreign, the echoes of our ordeal still lingering in every corner. It was in those quiet moments as we sat together in the stillness of our newfound freedom that Blake's voice broke the silence. "It's time we create something that's truly ours, Mom," he said, his eyes alight with a newfound determination. No more shadows lurking behind, no more ghosts of the past haunting our every step. His words resonated deep within me, striking a chord that had been muted for far too long. We had fought tooth and nail to break free from the shackles of Meredith's obsession, sacrificing so much in the process. Now, as the dust settled, it was time to reclaim our lives, to forge a path forward untainted by the darkness that had nearly consumed us. With renewed vigor, we threw ourselves into our craft, pouring our hearts and souls into each intricate design. Every delicate bead, every carefully woven thread became a testament to our resilience, a tangible reminder of the trials we had endured and the strength we had found within ourselves. As our creations began to garner attention from art enthusiasts and collectors alike, a sense of pride swelled within me. This was more than just a business venture. It was a phoenix rising from the ashes of our shared pain, a defiant declaration that we had emerged from the crucible of adversity stronger and more resolute than ever before. Yet, even as our success grew, I couldn't help but feel a lingering sense of unease, a whisper of doubt that threatened to undermine our hard-won progress. Meredith's words, her promises of retribution, still echoed in the recesses of my mind, a haunting refrain that refused to be silenced. It was during one of our busiest seasons, as orders poured in from across the country, that the specter of our past came knocking once again. A series of ominous packages arrived at our studio, their contents a chilling reminder of the depths of Meredith's depravity. Explicit photographs, detailing the most sordid aspects of her criminal dealings, accompanied by cryptic notes laced with thinly veiled threats, it was a calculated attempt to unravel the delicate tapestry of our newfound peace. Blake's face hardened as he sifted through the disturbing materials, his jaw clenched with a mixture of anger and residual fear. "She's not going to let this go, is she?" I remained steadfast, my resolve fortified by the hard-won lessons of our shared struggle. "We can't let her win, Blake, not after everything we've been through." With a steely determination, we doubled down on our security measures, fortifying our studio against any potential threats. But even as we took every precaution, a nagging sense of unease persisted, a constant reminder that the demons of our past were never truly vanquished, merely held at bay. It was in those moments of doubt and uncertainty that I found solace in the simple act of creation, my fingers deftly weaving intricate patterns, each stitch a defiant declaration of our resilience. As our designs took shape, they became more than mere works of art. They were talismans imbued with the strength of our shared bond, a tangible embodiment of the unbreakable spirit that had carried us through the darkest of storms. And as the world around us continued to shift and churn, as the echoes of Meredith's malice faded into the distance, one truth remained constant. We had weathered the tempest, emerging from the maelstrom stronger and more resolute than ever before. Our story was one of triumph over adversity, a testament to the indomitable power of family, love, and the unshakable pursuit of justice, no matter the cost.